Welcome one, welcome all to the podcast that shines the light on athletes past, future and present. This is their story. This is 2020 Vision. Hello and welcome to episode 32 of 2020 Vision. On this week's episode, we speak to a runner who has gone from strength to strength, not only in the times that he is doing, but also in the way that he coaches. Keith Bateman has gone from not really knowing much about running to planning on releasing his third edition of his book, Older Yet Faster, which we talk about in this up-and-coming chat. Here is my chat with Keith Bateman. I'm joined by Keith Bateman, runner and also author. Keith, do you mind telling us about your journey in athletics?
Yeah, sure. Well, I suppose it started about 1979 when I was working in Scotland. I was a ski instructor, and I wanted to start doing. I was doing some ski racing, downhill skiing, and I wanted to start cross country skiing, and I needed to get fit for that. So I entered a fun run. The cross country skiing didn't really work out. But I kept on with the running from then. So the first thing I did, which I don't advise now, was entering a marathon. And I did some 2 or 3 marathons over the next few years. So I was running from then until about 2000 when I came to Australia. And during that time I think I did 1 track race, and the rest of it was road and mountain races. And I was in the Scottish Hill running series for a few years. And then when I came to Australia, I'd had a series of times when I would run, and then I would stop running for a couple of years, life issues, and I put on some weight. So I think I was about 89 kilos when I came to Australia. And I thought, well, I better start running again. I went out for a run and I saw a group of people running, and I had a chat with them and joined them the following week, and then started competing with Sydney Striders. That would have been up until about 2003, and then I'd sort of reached my limit by then. I was running, I think, about 36 minutes for 10K, 35, something like that, which I started improved my personal best from about 36 and a half, which it was when I was 45. And then I thought I'd reached my limit, and I looked for a coach, and I found Sean Williams, who had a very good group of runners, Ben St. Lawrence and Harry Summers and other great runners like that. And I started training with them. That improved my times. And I think I got down to about 34 for 10K, 33 something, maybe for 10K. And then I think in about 2007, I started to look at my technique, started to change my technique gradually. Got my PBs then down to 2011 was my best year, and I got my 10K time down to 31:51. And that's as good as it's got so far. That's about the story, really.
So is there, along your journey, is there anyone that pushed you? You know, you've mentioned Sean there, but was there any athletes that you looked up to in the early years?
I would take the early years from sort of 2000 when I really started the training again. I used to run basically just my people around me, you know, who I would be competing against. People who aren't these days, aren't well-known runners. It's just good club runners. Martin Matthews, and there's a few people who I was running with. But it was really when I joined Sean's group that I was got my real training going, and people like, as I say, Ben St. Lawrence, would lap me in a 5K time trial, would lap me twice in a 10K time trial on the track. So these people, I would look at them and see how they were running and try to work out why they were going so fast.
Yeah, so obviously that kind of pushed you a bit further in, and you're like, okay, I really want to beat this guy eventually. Obviously, Ben St. Lawrence, we can't because he's that good. Let's talk about your book, Older Yet Faster.
Oh, yes, yep. Well, in the when I was running with Sean Williams, I suppose I was mentoring a lot of the younger boys in the group and girls, and I ended up with some good training partners. The surf winners, Lara Tamzik was my training buddy for a while. Belinda Wilshire was my training buddy for a while, and lots of youngsters would chase me, 14, 15-year-olds, and once they caught me, I would have to, push them on ahead and say, no, I'm not the target, keep going. And that was a process over the years. And Sean one day said to me, look, why don't you start some coaching? Because you're sort of doing that anyway with the boys, and I can't take any more privates. So I started coaching then, and that's when I really started to learn a lot about technique. And about that time, I met Heidi, my now wife, who's a podiatrist, and she had been, like me, constantly injured for years. She had 20 years, 20 or more of all the usual injuries, overstriding injuries that people get, like runner's knee, ITB. She had 7 stress fractures in a row, hip flexor pain, back pain, neck pain. She needed massages every week for about 20 years on her neck, basically because of the way she was running. Anyway, so I'd been coaching, and people were sending me emails asking me questions, and I would be sending an email back, and then the following week I'd get a very similar question. So I would go through my emails and cut and paste and adjust for the other customer, and that kept going. I thought, well, why don't I put all this information in one place? So that was the seed for the book. It was originally going to be an iPhone app, somebody suggested to me, but we never really completed that. But that's where the book started. And then meeting Heidi, I would be asking her all sorts of questions about the anatomy of the body and how it all worked. And that's how Heidi and I co-authored the book. And the Older Yet Faster is because, the age 45, my personal best was 36:30, I think, for 10K. And by 55, it was 31:51. So I was getting older, but getting faster. So that's where the title came from. And it's basically, it is my lessons, how I convert people, because basically I'm a technique change coach. So people come to me for one session, I change the way they think, I change their action, and they come back again, maybe 6 months later to do a brush up. But basically, it's what I do. It's the sessions I do in the book, into 5 or 6 lessons. It's everything I do. I don't do everything with every customer, but we've adjusted it so that people can pick up the book and the online videos, and they can start to change their technique to run like humans should run. And then Heidi's part is a foot and leg strengthening program, because as you change technique, you change the body parts that you use, or the parts of the body that you use, or the way you use them. And there's also a rehab chapter, because most people try to change too quickly, and they put a calf muscle, or they get a bit of tendonitis. So that's the way it works. So it's a series of lessons, plus a strengthening program, plus rehab if you need it. And it's in the book. It's got, I think, 60 or 70 illustrations, and also the online videos. And we have a Facebook group of about 1,000 readers now throughout the world, and people actually put up videos of their progress, and we help them out, pointing them into the into the right lessons, the right things that work for them.
So in a sense, you're an inspiration for a new form of running, because sometimes when people do get to a certain age, they think that they can't achieve. But what I'm hearing is that you've kind of pushed the older generation into a sort of running generation. They've kept going and they've tried to get themselves fit.
Yeah, well, it's of course the book is for anybody who's older this year than they were last year. So
yeah, true.
I mean, 15, 16-year-olds, it's the same thing. It's only older yet faster, not old necessarily. But what we find is a large proportion of our readers are injured. They've had all the usual injuries that I mentioned before, and they're fed up getting injured. And that's one of the main reasons why they want to change. The subtitle of the book is actually The Secret to Running Fast and Injury Free. And that's really what happens if you start running correctly. Then you greatly reduce the injury risk, and a byproduct is you go faster, because really all injuries happen whilst you're touching the ground, obviously. The only thing you can really do wrong when you're running is to land with your foot too far in front of you for the speed you're going at. So pressing on the ground too hard in front of you, overstriding. And if you reduce that, then obviously you reduce your braking. So you get to a point where most of your speed is preserved speed you've already got, like freewheeling on a bike. And so for the same effort, you go faster, you're more efficient. And then what happens in the later stages so in the early stages, you're reducing that overstride until you get to a point where rather than landing and most of your elastic energy in your legs being used to absorb the force of the landing and the braking, and then you have to push to replace the braking you've lost. Rather than that happening, you get to a threshold where you become very spring-like. So you land and spring off the ground, not like a pogo stick, but there's a lot of elasticity in the muscles, tendons, and ligaments. And our friend David Lieberman at Harvard University has actually measured in good runners about 17% rebound effect from the pronation effect of the foot, the landing of the foot and the arches and the plantar fascia, how that all works as a spring if you land correctly and near to vertically aligned. That can give you about a 17% rebound effect off the ground. And they've also measured at the same time, they've measured about a 35% from the Achilles tendon and the calf muscle. Provided you can get full range of movement, that would give you at best 51% rebound effect, which is why good runners look light on their feet. They're not pushing off the ground, they're rebounding off the ground using the elasticity in their muscles, tendons, and ligaments. So that's basically, what you're looking for. You're first looking to reduce your overstride, which will reduce the impact greatly, and then when you reach this threshold, you start to get a rebound off the ground, and that's where you get your long stride length and your speed from. It's flight time rather than stretching your legs out to make your stride longer.
Well, yeah. I take my statement back about you being an inspiration to older generations. You're an inspiration to all generations, and for you to put that into writing is pretty amazing, actually. So is there any success stories that you've had come out of your training?
Oh, yes. I did in the early days do some really massive changes to Morgan McDonald, if you look him up in America. That was when he had a nasty overstride, heel stripe overstride, and actually he changed in one session. And about 6 weeks later, he was with Sean's group. He suddenly started going faster, which was great. And now he's winning state cross-country competitions in the States, and it's going really well. Who else was there? Alex Rogers was running a 2:58 when he came to me, marathon, big tall guy, long legs, using his legs to get his stride length, doing a 2:59. The next year he was doing 2:25s marathons. And the injuries have stopped. Who else have we got? I know Matt Hudson. If you look him up as well, I was in training with him, and we were running about 32 and a half in training for over 10K. His foot was slipping back every time he took off. Now, if your foot's slipping back, it means you're pushing forwards. Mine wasn't, and we were going the same speed, and twice his age. So did one session with him. So if you're pushing forwards when you take off, it means you're braking the same amount if you're running constant speed. So he was unnecessarily braking. And he was just on that threshold point, and I changed him a fraction. And the next race he did, which I think was about 8 weeks later, he ran sub 30. Absolutely amazing. And it was just that it wasn't so much that we reduced the braking, which we did a minor amount. What happened was we hit that threshold where he was getting a free lift off the ground. So he's getting a longer stride length from flight time simply by getting that little spring off the ground, which is free energy. And I don't know that he's gone over 30 since then. So, Matt was a great success. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But you have to be careful. I did some stuff with Neil Berry. I think he's over your way, or he might be in Western Australia. Neil Berry, he was running, also coached by Sean. And I did one session with him 6 weeks before he did the Burnie 10 down in Tasmania. And Sean, my coach, and his coach, and I both thought, because he was such a good runner, we wouldn't make many changes, that he would be fine to race in 6 weeks' time. And I did make some nice little changes to him, but in the race, he said after 5 or 6K, his calf muscles felt like they were exploding. So these things have all given us good lessons. You only have to make a minor change to make major changes to the muscle use. And so part of the book, really big warning in the book about the changes that you have to basically cut back, stop training, cut back, and then rebuild with your new technique. So you need to allow yourself probably a year. There's a very good someone called David Blackman, if you look him up on Facebook. He blogged his technique change. We were in the UK, and we turned up at Southampton Athletic Club, asked them if we could join in with the training, and afterwards I gave them a book, and he and his coach decided to change his technique. I think he was age 49 then, and he blogged what he did, so we could actually see all the mistakes he made based on the first edition of the book, and we were able to make adjustments accordingly for the second edition to stop other people making the same mistakes. And now he's running great. He's hitting personal best now at the age of 51, which is, I suppose, it's another success story. And I actually saw him last year when I went over again and did some training with them. The funny story that his coach told me, he was quite embarrassed because Heidi and I turned up at the track, and I've got white hair, and I didn't have any shoes on the track, and he said, welcome, and but these boys are all quite fast, so don't be worried if you can't do the full session. I think we were doing 500s, you were doing 500. Don't be worried if you want to miss things out or that sort of thing. He thought I probably hadn't been on a track before. Well, I ran the 500s. I think we were running at 123 with the boys at the front. So
yeah.
he was quite embarrassed about that. Yeah.
Well, showing them up seems like a good thing.
Well, I wasn't showing them up. I was struggling. I was certainly struggling, but I was up front with some of the young boys. Yeah. So after he told me that, just be careful. Don't worry if you haven't been on the track much. It was quite funny.
Well, you've taught me a lot during this chat, mate, and I'm sure the listeners as well. Where can we find your book?
Right, well, if you just look up Older Yet Faster, you'll find it on just about everywhere, like Booktopia if you're in Australia. You can get it direct from us, olderyetfaster.com. If you go to olderyetfaster.com, then you'll find everywhere you can buy it. But it's on Amazon. You don't want to buy it from Amazon in Australia because they still print them in America and send them. But Booktopia and the electronic versions from Apple and Amazon. So, yeah, it's out there.
Beautiful, mate. And is there any clubs that you're currently a part of that you want to shout out?
Well, I've just actually, I'm still a member of Sydney Striders, but I've actually just joined Athletics East because I'm getting back into training now. And they have local evening, they have a good coach, Peter Good. Excellent. He's coaching me very well, keeping me from being a bit like a young puppy and going off too fast. So he's getting some consistent training out of me. So Athletics East here in Sydney, great little club, just joined them. And Sydney Striders, one of the biggest clubs in Australia, really good for, all runners, really, all over Sydney. They do great things. I saw them all this morning on the Coastal Run. They run every Sunday. They have a bush run on Saturdays. And I actually started a group for them, a speed group in the park, in Centennial Park here in 2002, I think, and that's still going. So there you go. So if you're a general runner, Sydney Striders, excellent club. Athletics East, if you want to get some more professional coaching, great there too.
Well, thank you very much, mate. You're a very busy man by the sounds of it, so I'll let you go, and I appreciate your time.
It was really good to talk to you, Jordan.
How amazing is Keith? I thank him very much for joining me for a chat on 2020 Vision, episode 32. He definitely is an inspiration to younger athletes, older athletes, and everyone in between. If you are interested in his book, Older Yet Faster, it is available on Amazon, Booktopia, as well as many other outlets online. Keith is giving me 3 books to give away, so do keep an eye out on the 2020 Vision Facebook page, and we'll be running a giveaway on there very shortly. I thank you very much for joining me yet again on another episode of 2020 Vision, episode 32. I hope you join me next week. Who knows who we're going to get.